As promised, let's talk tariffs for the next few minutes because big developments on that global story today. And in the last 30 minutes, you may have seen the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, announce that they are putting together plans to challenge the US tariffs that have been announced at the World Trade Organization, saying it's a violation of an existing free trade agreement between the countries. President Trump's tariffs on Mexico, on Canada and China came into effect today. The tariffs are 25% taxes on goods from Mexico and Canada and an additional 10% on Chinese products, bringing that total to 20%. The announcement sent US and European stocks sharply down. Well, Canada's Prime Minister, talking at that news conference just a short while ago, slammed the measures as illegal action, saying Canada will keep its tariffs on US goods in place until America remove theirs. And the country was also considering other options.
I won't sugarcoat it. This is going to be tough, even though we're all going to pull together, because that's what we do. We will use every tool at our disposal so Canadian workers and businesses can weather this storm. From expanding EI benefits and making them more flexible to providing direct supports to businesses, we will be there as needed to help. But Canada, make no mistake, no matter how long this lasts, no matter what the cost, the federal government and other orders of government will be there for you. We will defend Canadian jobs. We will take measures to prevent predatory behavior that threatens Canadian companies because of the impacts of this trade war, leaving them open to takeovers. We will relentlessly fight to protect our economy. We will stand up for Canadians every single second of every single day because this country is worth fighting for. It's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal. But Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do.
Well, let's speak to the former chief economist of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Patrick Lowe. And Doctor, welcome to the programme. It's a pleasure to have you on. It looks like we are in for a sustained trade war here, doesn't it?
It really does. I think the word that Prime Minister Trudeau used is apt. The economics of this are really crazy.
He said dumb. In terms of consequences globally, just take our viewers through it in terms of likely consequences here.
Well, I mean, the first impact will be on prices that the United States has to pay in order to import products from Canada, from Mexico and from China. And those are not insignificant amounts of trade. The immediate effect will be to raise consumer prices. Producers in the United States who rely on imports as inputs into their production processes will also be affected. And then, of course, there's the retaliation. There's no doubt whatsoever that there's going to be retaliation. We don't know what Mexico's going to do, but we have a pretty good idea what the Canadians and the Chinese have in mind, and it'll get ugly. I'm not sure how this is going to end, but it's going to be very bad for the economy, the world economy, because these are big players.
And when you get into a spiral like that, it is very difficult to actually get out of it. I was looking at a graphic only, a month or so ago when this was proposed and then paused. But the notion was if we get into a full global tit-for-tat tariff war, in terms of the impact it has on GDP, global GDP, it was the combined total of France and Germany. I mean, that is staggering, isn't it?
It's huge. It's huge. And clearly there'll be an economic, if this carries on, if they don't settle this quickly, and I don't think the prospects for doing that look great, it's going to hit, it's already hitting stock markets and stock prices. It's going to hit inflation. It's going to hit growth. It's just going to make people poorer. Maybe a few countries will gain a little bit because of shifting trade patterns, but it'll be minor compared to the damage.
already growth, you mentioned growth already. We're looking at this quarter for the US, and it's having an impact. All the uncertainty of the last 6 weeks playing into a slashing of the forecast for American growth. And of course, we're perhaps just partway down this path, aren't we? Because the EU is in Donald Trump's sights next.
We're going to see what they do to the EU. I think it'll be surprising if they don't do the same thing. But then, of course, it's just going to multiply by several-fold the consequences, because Europe's a big player.
In terms of a way out, I know it's very difficult to try and get inside the mind of the American president, but what do you think he's actually hoping to achieve here?
I'm not sure, honestly, because I do think it's hard to get inside his mind. But from what he's been saying for quite a long time, he thinks that tariffs are a legitimate defense against what he considers to be the systematic exploitation of the United States by all its trading partners. Now, on both counts, it's very hard to understand what he's actually talking about, because clearly these are simply not the realities.
He has said in the past that he wants companies to come back to actually produce in America. That is a pretty simplistic thing to say. How difficult is it to translate into reality?
Well, first of all, that takes quite a lot of time. And secondly, they're going to come into America to do what? To service export bases when they have to buy all these inputs at inflated prices. It's really hard to see. You know, he thinks that the United States needs more manufacturing industry. And that's also something that's highly contested, because if you look at the national accounts of the United States, the vast bulk of the United States earnings, the money, the income comes from services, not from manufacturers. And that's the reality of rich countries.
A quick final thought. We've only got a few seconds left. We said that Canada's Prime Minister is going to challenge what the Americans have done at the World Trade Organization. Has that got any mileage, do you think, briefly?
Sadly, I'm afraid it will not have, because the World Trade Organization is in disrepair to the point where I don't think anything it says or does right now is going to have an impact. Perhaps that'll get better in the future, but right now, it's more of a political gesture than a hope for remedial action.
Dr. Patrick Lowe, a really bleak analysis from you, but thank you for your time and your thoughts. We have to leave it there. Thanks so much for joining us on the programme.